And then also, we're here, so we would also say that there's a spiritual component, that there's an innate knowing that we can have where we get information from. So for just a minute, I want to take a look at those personal experiences and things that other people tell us, and how that creates what we're thinking, and how that's a limited set of data that we're operating off of. So I want to tell a personal story about myself. When I was in high school, I was dating a boy. He was kind of the rebel. Okay, he was the drug dealer. And I was on the honor roll, and I really liked school. But he was so cool, and gosh, he was so handsome, and everything was just so exciting, and oh man. So about 2 years, I went down this road. And I kind of thought it probably wasn't good for me. This didn't seem like something that my parents might approve of. Maybe that's the reason I was doing it in the first place. But it began that as I became a senior in high school, I realized that this just more and more friction and trouble. And I wanted to break up with him, but I didn't, I just couldn't get it done. And I was worried, and we'd break up and get back together and break up and get back together. And about this same time, a girl actually moved into my family home. She was the daughter of a friend of my parents who was struggling, and so we took her in so that she could kind of get her life back together. And so during this time when I was struggling with my boyfriend, I would come home, and this girl was there, and I got to know her, and we became good friends. And every night I would come home and just complain and wring my hands. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And she was such a good listener. And she was encouraging and supportive. And she began to tell me I deserved better. That maybe all this fighting was about the fact that we should break up. And that made a lot of sense. And so finally, with her encouragement and support, I found enough courage to go and break up with this boy. And I felt kind of sad, but I felt hopeful. I was thinking, okay, this it feels bad, but it's gonna make the future better. And so the next day, after I broke up with him, I discovered some new information. I discovered that the girl was sleeping with my boyfriend. Ouch. Oh, I still get that feeling right there. It's not good. And so at 18, I thought I had learned something. I thought men are liars and women cannot be trusted. And oh yeah, I hate Subarus. She drove a Subaru, and for years after that, every time I saw a Subaru, I hate that car. That's a bad car. Don't ever buy a Subaru. And this is what I thought that I learned. But as I tell this story today, I can realize that maybe I was using a limited set of data. That just by going off my personal experience and by what somebody had told me, I wasn't doing myself service. And now, some information is good. Like if you have a hot stove and you put your finger on it and it burns you, and the next time you don't touch it, that's useful information. But life and relationships are a whole lot more complicated than that. And so what I found for me is that I had to begin to learn to be aware of how I was living my life and what I was thinking in order to not be having some of the awful things that were happening in my life at that time, totally caused by me. What I found was that if I were going to live my life where I wouldn't let anybody love me, and I would choose to love no one, and if I wouldn't let anybody get close to me, then that was far more hurtful than that original pain that I felt. And so I can tell you for me that at that point at which my life seemed to be a disaster, that I looked for something and came to this idea of being able to be mindfully aware of what am I thinking? What is it that's causing me to live my life in this exact way? And that's the postscript. I don't want you guys to, I don't want to give you the idea that you should lose your faith in humanity, that it was a learning experience. It was one person and one girl. And that I learned that from being able to be aware of what I was thinking, that then I had the power to change it. And that's what's so awesome about this process. So it's simple, simple, simple. First, we become aware of what we're already thinking. We start to see more clearly what's going on in our head. And second, we recognize that some of the things we're thinking may be an error thought. And third, we then get to choose what we want to think about. And so Napoleon Hill emphasizes that now you can ask yourself the question, what do you want most in life? In this moment, ask yourself, what do I want most? And you can have a specific desired outcome for your life. It doesn't mean it's not going to change, but it sends you in a certain direction. It gives you that motivation to practice mindfulness awareness, to let go of error thoughts that can be hard to let go of sometimes. And it can give you that enthusiasm and joy, the joy that I feel in my life now because I was willing to let go of those error thoughts that no longer served me. So where do we get this inspiration from about what we want to do most in life? Napoleon Hill talks about, think about all the knowledge in the world, all the knowledge that was ever learned or ever will be learned. Some of it is in our heads, some of it is in the universe. Just imagine that it's in each atom or in the planets. Imagine there's this vast array of knowledge, and that we in this body are a conduit for learning whatever it is that we need to do and learn in order to enjoy our life. So from a spiritual sense, you can think about your body as kind of a big converter box, that there's all this knowledge swirling around us here, and that through our body and our mind, we're able to tune in to the divine channel. That we can tune in to God, the good, and look there for our answers. So as we go into meditation today, I want to just encourage you to try one little thing. And that is, as you think about all the old experiences you've had, you think about what other people have told you about how the world is, any kind of old memories or habits that you're holding on to, think of those as like a heavy coat that you've been hanging on to and walking around with. And imagine just for the next few minutes that you take that coat off and you set it aside and just sit in the freshness of this moment, in the silence.